most successful entrepreneurs never even finished high school.
Yeah. Or they did and they just didn't do too well.
Yeah.
But your grades don't matter in the end. In overall life, that's just such a minuscule part. But people treat your high school grades as if they're going to really shape your entire life, which is not true.
Hey, I'm Lisa Hugo, and I am obsessed with helping other people find their voices so they can go out and take on the world, be seen as an authority, an expert, and grow their business by sharing that knowledge and expertise with others. Now, I studied performing arts, and I spent 20 years of my career traveling the world as a professional singer-songwriter. I teach you the secrets to speak up and be heard, overcome your fears, and then use these skills to build a business and a life that you love and that could change both your own life and the lives of others. This is your one-stop shop for all things that are going to help you to build a life on your terms. This is Impact Through Voice. Hey, welcome back to the Impact Through Voice podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Hugo, and today I'm sitting in the studio with somebody who's not my regular guest, let's say. I've actually decided to bring my daughter onto the show, Emma. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and we'll see where the conversation goes. I'm a little bit nervous about this, but let's go. Welcome to the podcast, Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma. I'm my mother's daughter, and my mum's brought me on the podcast because I have quite an interesting voice, and there's a lot of interesting things about me that needs to be said and put out into the world.
Oh my gosh, now you're making me nervous. All right, so where do we start? Let's start with, well, the fact that you've grown up with your mum as a voice coach. I mean, the very first time that you got introduced to me teaching voice and singing was when you were just a newborn and you were in the little maxi cozy next to me, and I'd be sitting at the piano, I'd be playing piano, and I'd be rocking you, trying to do the action, all at the same time. And so you've had 18 years of listening to your mum teach voice. What kind of influence has that had on you?
I think it's had a few different influences on me, because I would sit in on your classes when you were teaching people how to sing, and sure, a lot of the time I wasn't listening. I was watching TV or I was sorting your files, but there were things that stuck because sometimes I would participate, especially if they were my age group that you were teaching. And some of those techniques kind of stuck with me. But there have also been some influences where you weren't teaching, but we were just, talking on our own as I was growing up. And I think that kind of influenced it. Because I remember when I was younger and I would start talking, it's like mumbling a little bit, you would call me out on it a lot as a kid, and that kind of brought me out of it.
What about the filler words?
Oh, yeah. Yep. When I joined into secondary school and high school, and there were a bunch of kids around me saying the word like, that did influence me to say like a lot as well. And you definitely got me out of that habit very quickly. So I'm very, very glad about that.
To me, like, kind of like the word like, or lots of those other filler kind of words, I just did it myself, are like swear words. And I think they should be conditioned out of kids at a very young age. The same way you're not allowed to use swear words, you're not allowed to use these words.
I didn't realize cuss words were filler words.
I wasn't saying that.
Oh, I thought you, okay.
They are as bad as cuss words because you use them frequently and they should just not be in language.
I kind of disagree with that.
Okay.
I think that sometimes, not all the time, they can help influence your point a little bit.
In what sense? Give me an example.
I don't think in serious settings that they can influence your point. I think it's more with friends. It's less serious, more casual. But I can't really give you an example because you'll have to bleep it out.
Okay. What I say is, in more professional settings at least,
Yes.
that any filler words are going to undermine your credibility.
Yeah. No, that I agree with.
And hopefully that's put you in good standing as you move out into the bigger, wider world to start your own professional career, to at least be in control of how you speak in the moments when you need to. And that's going to be big for you because you want to become an actress.
Yes, I do. I do want to become an actress. And I think because I talk quite confidently, it will influence me quite positively in the real world. I've found that I have a very weird accent, which will also, I feel like that will help me a lot with acting as well, because I go into different accents. I can change up quite quickly depending on what I need to do.
Want to give us some examples?
For funny thing, I can't do them on command at the moment when I'm in this situation. They kind of come out on their own when I'm in difficult situations. Like if I'm scared or nervous, I go into a different character out of nowhere. Yeah. It's a little weird, but it's fun.
It's like a coping mechanism.
Maybe.
Or some way to just get you through.
Yeah.
So you put on a character, and if you're playing a character, then suddenly you can...
It makes it funny for me, and it helps me deal with the situation a little bit. Like that time we were in Australia, and so I don't remember if it was you or Joe. You told me there was a spider behind me, and I went into a Swedish accent.
You did.
And my name was not Emma anymore. It was suddenly Gunther or something like that. And I was talking about how that's super unusual that there's a spider behind me, because there are no spiders where I'm from. But I don't know if that's true. It's just my mind went to, there's snow. The spiders can't survive, but they probably can.
Tell us more about acting. You're currently in your final year of DP, correct me.
CP. I'm in IB curriculum, but I'm doing the CP program.
Right. What does that actually mean? Because
I have more time. Like the program is centered around you already knowing what you want to do. So you don't have to do as many subjects that aren't necessary for your progression into that career. So you have more time to actually focus on developing your skills for said career. That's what it is. I have maybe 10 hours a week where I don't have classes, and they're meant for me to focus on developing my own skills and maybe go and do some internships during school hours. It's just, that's what the time is supposed to be mainly focused on.
So you've only got a few months left, and from there then you want to move on. Where are you wanting to study? I know this, but my listeners don't know this.
Yes. I'm hoping to study in Australia for acting universities. My top school at the moment is NIDA, but I'm not setting I'm not putting all of my hope into that, because it's unlikely that I'm going to actually get in, but I'm going to at least try. They've got a 17% acceptance rate, and it's really hard to get in.
Yep. I know that because I auditioned as well, and I did not get in.
Sucker.
But NIDA is the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Australia, and it's the
16th,
number one.
It's the 16th best in the world.
Right.
Which
and
is
it's
really,
the number one in
really
Australia.
high. Yeah.
And the likes of Nicole Kidman, Mel Gibson, and the
other people.
Hollywood Aussie stars, most of them came out of NIDA. So it's a great aspiration, and well, fingers crossed, and I believe in you. I believe in you.
Well, it's going to be tough because my school is not the best with helping out with acting and the applications and everything needed. I've talked to my university counselor. She wasn't very helpful. She more expected me to know everything, but that's why I was coming to her, because I didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're left a bit on your own to do all of your research and apply to universities.
Yep.
Right. How do you feel you're going to cope coming from the UAE, growing up here? You spent 18 years of your life in the UAE. and then going to another country to live?
I think it's going to be a stressful,
Exciting?
yeah, exciting, but I think it's going to be transitioning into that lifestyle because the UAE is quite sheltered and it's very safe compared to a lot of other countries. I mean, I was talking to someone who had just recently moved to Melbourne for university, and he told me he was almost stabbed twice. And that really shocked me.
That shocks me as well.
Yeah, but it's Melbourne.
Yeah.
That's what everyone
It's
says.
my hometown. That's where
Yeah.
I was raised, and I never had an experience like that. But you do have to be a lot more careful, and you
Yeah.
have to be, as we've always said this anyway, you are very street savvy compared with your sister. No offense, but
No, it's okay. I tell her this all the
you're
time.
that kind of personality that you can very easily adapt
Yeah.
to situations, and you're quite mature for your age.
Yeah, I'd say so as well. Joanna is more book smart. I'm more street smart. Kind of makes us a good pair. But there have been a lot of times, especially recently, where I truly believe that I am the smartest in the room when it comes to common sense in the house. Especially when Dad's not in the room and it's just you, me, and Joe. I really believe it sometimes. No offense.
No offense taken.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Sometimes you do play the adult role.
There's a running joke in the house that I have to parent my parents because just sometimes.
So Emma is constantly sending me these little reels that she finds on Instagram, on TikTok, and
About parenting your parents.
Parenting your parents. And it's actually quite funny because it's actually true. Everyone she sends me, it feels like, oh my God, that is me. All right, still talking about going to Australia and growing up in the system here and the schools. Let's talk about how prepared the education system, and how does that prepare you for real life?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
That's one of the only things you can really say about it. It really doesn't. They focus on how much you learn, and I truly believe that the way they grade you is super, super wrong. And because a lot of people, they don't do well in tests. And if you don't pass your end of year exams, you don't graduate. You have to retake those exams. But a lot of people, they know the stuff, but they can't do well on the exams because of the pressure. And it makes their grades go down, which then limits them.
Yeah.
It's not a good system. It really limits a lot. It pushes a lot of people forward because they do well in exams, but it also limits a lot more people for what they can do because most people don't do well in exams, from what I've seen, at least.
What about schools teaching other things other than academics of, your main subjects, your sciences, your maths, whatever, your arts even, but things like getting you ready for life when it comes to understanding money, finances, general life skills?
Yeah, I think schools really need to do that. It's
investing,
Yeah.
understanding, how to...
Schools prepare you to be in a cycle of to be in a specific system of the world. If you do well in school, you're more likely to be in this system. Like you'll be a doctor, an engineer, whatever, but you might not be as happy with what you're doing because you've been put into this little box of what you're supposed to do, what you're taught to do.
What you're expected to do.
Yes. What I've found is people that not necessarily do bad, but do kind of average in school tend to be more successful from what I've heard. I'd say fact check me on that, but that's what I believe. Maybe not people who are failing, but in the middle of really well and really bad, like just average student, because they're not putting themselves in such a box. They're not stressing themselves out too much over it. And I think it opens up more opportunities in your own mind of what you can do.
So most entrepreneurs, big, successful entrepreneurs, never even finished high school.
Yeah. Or they did, and they didn't do too well.
Yeah.
But your grades don't matter in the end. You in overall life, that's just such a minuscule part, but your grades, people treat your high school grades as if they're going to really shape your entire life, which is not true.
It's not true.
And it's really stupid that if you get bad grades, you can't move on anymore. You might have to waste another year of your life. That's stupid.
Yeah. But of course, they're doing this to put the pressure on you so that you do the best that you can do, because in those first few years, they are what counts to get you into that next level of wherever you're going to go.
But that system itself is flawed, because you might not do well, but you can be so talented in other aspects. Like, for example, I want to do acting. I'm quite talented when it comes to creative, just things when it comes to being creative. I'm quite talented in that, but I'm not great with proper academic subjects like sciences, maths. It's not my thing. But if I don't do well with certain subjects, I cannot graduate, and I will not be able to move on to what I really want to do, which is creative arts. Do you see how that's flawed?
I see that's
because
completely flawed.
those subjects are not going to help me at all in my life at all.
Yeah.
Nothing about them.
But it's so similar to what I did as well. Luckily I didn't have to do any of the maths in my final year, because I knew all I wanted to do was music, or music. And so I studied music A, music B, but I had to have a fourth subject. I had to do English, and then I had to have a fourth subject. So I chose Australian history.
Ugh.
Exactly. But I scraped through it, I passed, and I was able to then go on and do what I really wanted to do.
Yep.
But you can still shape your own future, whatever happens. Okay, tell us about why you are in some ways different.
Well, my brain is very different to others. I have ADHD, and that definitely shapes how I learn differently and shapes how I treat certain situations. And it's one of the big reasons why I think acting is the best career for me, because I can't stick with something for a long period of time. For example, if I chose a career, I don't think I'd be able to stick with it for very long. I'd be very bored very quickly. But with acting, you have to do different roles. You have to change your thought process for different characters that you're going to play. And I think that would challenge me, and I think that would keep me interested.
But tell us about, because you say you've got ADHD, and you're only diagnosed with that when you were about 16.
Yeah.
And until then, we just always knew there was something different about you.
Yeah, you told me you kept looking up different disorders when I was younger. I was not a good child. I was not.
Let's say you were a challenging child.
A demon. You can say it.
You were a demon at times.
I'm sorry.
We didn't understand, because you were so different as well to your sister. And I guess at the beginning, as from a parenting perspective, we don't get a handbook. We don't know how to do it.
You looked up if I was schizophrenic at one point.
I did at one point. We even talked to doctors about it, because or bipolar, because you would go from being the sweetest little thing to being the most aggressive
brat.
Yeah.
Demon
very
child.
Challenging brat, throwing things. You threw an entire bookcase.
Yeah, you told
down.
me that.
Yeah.
And I'd slam doors and the walls would crack.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I want to apologize, but I also want to say maybe people should have looked into the ADHD part. But the symptoms show very differently for girls and boys, especially at all ages, actually. They say that symptoms come up around 10 years old, I think, for both. No, I think it's slightly later for girls. But from my experience, I'm sure that the symptoms presented at a very, very young age.
When you were born. No, for real. Just as a baby, we didn't know, we didn't have anything else to go by because we only had you. First-time parents, we only had you. But then once the second child came along, well, we realized you were very different. But I still tried to treat you both the same. And that was my mistake at the beginning, is, just trying to raise you together, giving you the same everything and at the same time.
That screwed with my brain a little bit.
Yeah.
When I got something, Joanna had to get it at the exact same time as me, which pissed me off a little bit because I had to wait 2 more years than she did to get it because she's 2 years younger than me.
Yeah.
So when I got a phone, she got a phone. And it seemed more unfair than it kind of was, especially to me being a young child. And it seemed like favoritism at that time.
Yeah.
Yep. And when I was younger, Joe and I did hate each other. Now we're best friends, but we hated each other. And we've had this conversation quite a few times, me and my mom, because I've talked to my sister about this. My sister, Jo, liked to rile me up to get me in trouble because she knew I had a short fuse when it came to her. So she'd rile me up when my parents weren't looking. It would make me do something rash and I would get in trouble, and they would not believe me when I told them she was doing this on purpose. I spoke to my sister within this recent year, and she remembers she did it on purpose. And my parents still forget that sometimes.
So I'm sure we're not the only ones who've gone through these kinds of experiences.
For sure
That's
not.
Family dynamics, but communication within a family is just as important as communication in any other part of our lives.
That's where you learn communication.
Yeah.
That's where your communication skills come from, your family. If your family communicates poorly, you are more likely to communicate poorly with other people as well.
That's very true. I say that a lot. We learn to speak, first of all, by mimicking. Mm-hmm. You learn your first words by listening to your parents. Mm-hmm. And then in those first 3 years, basically your parents are the only ones, and your grandparents are the only ones that you're going to be hearing. So you will mimic the way that they speak.
Exactly.
And if they are, as you say, bad communicators, and in any way, if the way that they communicate is narcissistic or detrimental, or you're going to pick up on that.
Exactly.
You're going to find yourself potentially taking on the same traits. Mm-hmm. But if they're also just a very poor communicator, as a mumbler, they don't speak clearly, you're going to pick up on that and you're going to start doing the same thing as well.
Yeah. I've always found it funny that you're a voice coach and you do mumble more than Dad and I do.
Not true.
That is true. That is very true. When you're not on camera and you've not got a mic with you and you're just talking with the family, you mumble not as much as Joe, but you mumble more than Dad and I do. Dad and I speak very clearly, and we speak at a good level of volume. But you talk under your breath sometimes.
Okay.
And that's, I think. So you and Joe are part of the same. You cut from the same cloth. Dad and I are also cut from the same cloth. Yep. So it's very easy to split.
We don't look alike.
It's very easy to split our family into 2 groups, and it's usually you, Joe, and then me and Dad. Mm-hmm. That's usually it. Because you and Joe share a lot of the same interests, and Dad and I, we just click more. It's not really sharing the same amount of interests, but it's just the fact that we have more of the same
DNA.
I was actually going to say we have similar thoughts and similar ways of speaking and acting. We have.
Okay.
I think that's where I've gotten my humor from as well.
Yeah.
Because you and Joe are not funny.
Thank you. But she's kind of true.
Yeah, it's very true, actually. Yeah.
Getting back to the ADHD,
yes.
That's where we were going with this, is that you even said that you struggle with staying focused on things which you don't necessarily enjoy, but you have to do. So you have a very short attention span. But then when it comes to something which you really enjoy and you'll suddenly have an inkling you want to do, like crocheting, you'll sit there for hours and hours until your hands are almost bleeding.
They're not bleeding, but they hurt so much at the end because I'm doing it for so long. And it's bad when you have long nails as well because the nail presses into your palm. And then when I'm done, I've got lots of little crescent shapes on my palm.
So you were in a school and we didn't have the diagnosis at that point, but the school didn't have any way to...
They should have known.
To work with you, yeah.
Yeah, they treated it very poorly. I was missing a lot of homework. I was not doing a lot of tasks that I should have been doing. And this one teacher, she just kept pulling me out of classes almost every day to tell me I had a lot of work outstanding and that I had the next week to do it. Not just all that outstanding work, but to do the work that I still had to do, which is not how you should handle that when a child is obviously struggling. And she was taking me out of classes a lot of the time when that's when they would start discussing homework. And that happened a few times where they started to discuss homework and then I was taken out to then discuss more homework. But I was missing out on that conversation that I needed to hear. So you had to email her to ask her to stop taking me out during class time. And what did she do? She started taking me out on my breaks, and they had just shortened their breaks as well, which then screwed me up a lot more. What did we do after that? We left the school because she was being annoying.
And because COVID hit, and so you then spent 2.5 years in homeschooling, or not homeschooling, but an online school. So you worked from home.
Even when life went back to normal here, I was still in homeschool, which definitely affected how I act now with other people, positively and negatively.
Okay.
I think it made me more confident in who I am and not pressured by other people to change how I act just to fit in with the groups that are at school. There's no one in the school that I go to right now that I'd actually consider a friend of mine. I'm mainly on my own, and I prefer it that way because everyone else, they're very focused on rumors and just anything that they find interesting. I don't care. I really don't. I like to focus on my own things, and they don't like to focus on their own things. They like to focus on other people's things, from what I've seen. And I just don't click with anyone.
How did getting the diagnosis from ADHD change for you? Change your, I don't know, the way you, understood it and could work with it?
I don't know if this sounds weird or not, but I was super happy to get the diagnosis, and I really wanted a diagnosis because getting a diagnosis doesn't change what's happening with you. It just gives you more of an explanation how it can help. So whenever I'm going to a doctor about things or I'm going to a psychologist, I always want to find a diagnosis or at least an explanation, because no matter what, I'm still going to be having those symptoms. Mm-hmm. And I knew I had ADHD before I went to the psychologist because I was looking it up. I took online quizzes. Do you have ADHD? And the psychiatrist that we went to made us do the basically one of those exact quizzes.
True. I had to do one. You had to do one.
Yeah. Yes, I did. I only started looking into ADHD when a friend of mine who had ADHD told me that I probably had it because the conversations that we were having were flowing way too well. No, honestly, because when you have ADHD, you're going from the more you talk about something, the more ideas you have, and you want to go to those, and you forget to finish what you were talking about originally, and you just keep moving on, and then you might come back to it. It's kind of like a little cycle. And when I was talking with her, it was just, we were just going the same pace. Our thoughts were just on the same way. We were on the same wavelength. And she told me, and that's when I started looking into it, and she was right.
Mm. And you did a TEDx
I did.
youth talk on the topic.
ADHD. Yep. Yeah, I don't. I decided to do a TEDx because I don't believe schools and parents really understand how to handle ADHD because it presents differently in everyone. I was told there's 2 types of ADHD. I don't believe that. I know many people with ADHD and they all present differently. I was told that you can be either inattentive or impulsive. And then I don't know why they said there's 2 when they said, or you can have both, because that means there's 3.
Right, yeah.
I am someone who has both.
Yeah.
Not great. You've always said that my ADHD is like a superpower for me.
Can be.
But I never see it that way because sure there are a lot of advantages to it, but there's a lot of disadvantages as well. And I'd say there are more disadvantages than there are advantages when it comes to school life. I'm sure I'll feel differently when I leave school, but at the moment, there's more disadvantages.
Because the pressure that you have to keep up and do things which aren't necessarily things which are in your pocket that you want to do for your future, which we've already talked about.
I get burnt out very quickly because of it. And I don't know if there's actually a name for this because we talked about this with my psychiatrist as well. I thought I was bipolar for a while because I go through these waves throughout months where I'll get super depressed and then I'll come back and I'll feel great. But I thought that was me being bipolar, but no, my psychologist just told me those periods where you feel great, that's when you're more normal. She said normal, but I don't like that she said normal. You're normal. No, you're just happier. You're not as depressed. You're functioning better. That, I don't know if it has a diagnosis, but I found out from a lot of people with ADHD, they experience the same thing. It's like extreme depressive waves, and it makes it harder to deal with a lot of situations and keep up with school life. Makes me burn out quicker when I'm in those depressive waves. And the worst part about it is the parts where I can function better don't last long. And I think that is purely because school makes me go down quicker. And I think that when I leave school and I'm in a different country and I'm surrounded by other people that I work best with, I think that those periods will last longer and then the depressive periods will be a lot shorter.
Isn't it also got to do with different hormones, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins? I mean, you're actually doing psychology in school.
Yeah.
And so do you understand, because we talked about this, that, I need a dopamine rush and there's quick, and you hate it when I talk about dopamine.
Yeah, no, I hate when you just say, I need dopamine. There's too much cortisol. When you could literally just say, man, I need to feel happy, or I need something to make me feel excited. But you go for the hormone version instead. I need dopamine. I'm feeling too much cortisol in my brain. It's super weird, and I find it unusual. And annoying.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I relate it back to public speaking as well. And
you read a book, and then after reading that book, you were like, oh, you know what I need? You know what I need right now? A hit of dopamine.
At least I learned something from that book. It's called an angel's cocktail or a devil's cocktail. Mm-hmm. So you can mix your own cocktails. You can choose to have the right kind of dopamine. You can choose to put yourself in a state of oxytocin, serotonin, and it keeps you in a happy state. Or you can choose to go for the stress levels, the cortisol, and then you're in a devil's cocktail, which is only going to bring you down.
I'm going to go back to ADHD right now with that. I think that's harder for people with ADHD than it is for well, actually, not just ADHD. I think it's harder for people who are neurodivergent than for people who are neurotypical. It's just when you're neurodivergent, like I am, it's harder for me to actually do the things that I have to do, even though completing those tasks will make me happier and less stressed. Notice how I said happier and stressed other than dopamine and cortisol. Notice how I sounded normal instead of scientific.
Okay, got it.
It's hard to just start tasks. It's really hard to explain as well because you won't experience it the way I experience it. So the way I explain it, it's like you can't really.
So my question is then, there's a lot more talk around ADHD and all of these new diagnoses that never were a thing before. So people are able to talk about it and share it more. And there's a lot of people out on social media who are putting themselves out there to share and help other people to understand it. Have you ever thought of using your voice to help other people to better understand? I mean, you did the TEDx, and that was helpful because all the teachers came up to you and they said, can you please come and do something for the teachers to understand?
It was the primary school teacher. She wanted me to do a talk with the teachers, just a lot of the school teachers, so they could understand. Exactly. And some parents came up to me and they were calling me really brave and stuff. But it actually shocked me how many people were calling me brave to speak out about that because it felt very natural to talk about it. What really pissed me off when I joined the school is I found out people were calling me crazy.
That's right.
Or they were basically spreading rumors that I was mentally unstable, I was crazy, just because they all heard that I had a meeting with someone in the school that helps you. He's someone who helps you with the special needs guy who gets you extra time or makes sure the teachers know that this is how you operate. They found out that I had a meeting with him and they started spreading rumors that there's something wrong with me. Oh my goodness, what? When it's just ignorance. Yeah. There's a lot of ignorant people, and it shocked me after I joined the school how many people were so ignorant when it came to mental health or just some disorders.
Even teachers.
My
understanding
teachers.
It.
Yeah, but in this school, my teachers were a lot more
supportive.
Informed than my old school. My old school, they didn't even really say anything about it when they really should have noticed that there was something going on. Instead of talking to you guys about it, you and Dad, that maybe there's something wrong and that I need to get looked into, they just kept telling me and put extra pressure on me that I had to do this within a certain amount of time or else I'd get in even more trouble. That's the worst thing you could do, especially to a teenager already struggling. It's the worst thing.
So I'm really excited to see where you head, what happens for you next. I think you've matured incredibly. You've just developed your voice. You have a voice. You're wanting to get out there and become an actress. And maybe you'll start using your voice to support others in other ways as you go on. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, it's over?
I've really enjoyed it.
It's over?
It's over.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to keep going.
No, it's okay. I don't want to take too much of everyone's time up.
Oh, let's not end it like that.
No, that did sound a little bad.
Is there anything else you wanted to share?
One more thing. You keep telling me, you keep thinking of me in many different careers. Like I'll say one thing that I've started a new hobby, or I make a joke and you go, I see you in comedy.
Oh, I do see you in comedy.
You're going to be a stand-up comedian.
We haven't really seen that today, but I definitely see you in comedy. You get me laughing all the time. You're so spontaneous.
Yeah.
You're very funny.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if you either end up as an actress in sitcom, in comedy style series or movies, or as a stand-up comedian. I think you'd be excellent.
Yeah. I want to try a little bit of everything though in my acting career, not just certain genres. I want to do a little bit of everything, and that might help me with what I like most.
I think
which it probably will be something in comedy, but it might change.
I think everybody has to do that. You start out, you have to work out what it is that you like, which areas. I dabbled in acting, I dabbled in singing musicals, stage shows, until both my career naturally took its progression, opportunities came in the right way, and then I also made choices that I wanted to go in that direction because I started to know who I was and what I really enjoyed, and the same will happen for you too.
I don't want to become a teacher. That might have sounded a little out of the blue. Out of the blue. It's just that you were in a singing career and then you changed to teaching singing and then teaching speaking. I don't think I could ever be a teacher. Nothing against it. It's just not me. I am actually a teacher right now, kind of. I help teach 4-year-olds with improv, but I don't see myself doing that in the future with my career. I don't think I'd work well with it.
You say that now. I said that at the same age. I said that at the same age. But, life takes turns and turns. And, I had you and I had Joe, and I didn't want to be out performing and on the road and away from my husband because that's where performance was taking me. And so I made the choice to shift across to sharing what I knew and my experience to others. Yeah. And you don't have to say, I don't think I can do that now. Life will take its course. And as I said, I think you're incredibly talented. And I'm very excited to see what the future brings for you. And I hope I'm going to be around for long enough to experience it. All right, I didn't leave on that.
Ooh.
In any case, thank you for coming in. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing all of yourself and your experiences. Yeah. And I hope there's someone who's been listening who's got some value out of learning more about ADHD and neurodivergent.
And if you're a parent to someone who has ADHD, or if you're just a family member or even just a friend or teacher, the best thing you can do for them is not to assume what's best for them, but to ask them personally. Maybe if they can't think of anything, which was happening with me, like what do you think's best for you and your learning styles? You can give them options and they can choose maybe this is what's best for them, because those options might also make them think of their own things. It's the best thing you can do for them is ask them what you can do for them to help, because leaving them on their own, it's going to stress them out. They need help.
It's great advice.
Yes, it is. Sorry.
Great to have you on.
It was. Thank you. This was a long time in the making. We've been talking about this for a while.
We have.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Impact Through Voice podcast. Now, if you've reached the end of this episode, then it means you're enjoying the podcast. So I have a quick favor to ask. If you haven't yet subscribed, please go and do it now, and even leave us a review, because it really does help us so much to reach more people and impact more people. And I would be very, very grateful. Now, I love to read all of your comments about the show and what you're enjoying, what you would like to hear more more of. So please take the time and go and do that now. When you do that, please take a screenshot and then tag me on Facebook or Instagram. That's Lisa Hugo Official. I'm going to be sure to share your post, and I'm also going to private DM you with a thank you. And it also means you won't miss an episode. And as a subscriber, then you're going to get access to more content that we don't even open up to everybody. So thanks again. And until next time, keep on working towards your goals and making a positive impact on the world with your voice.